Awesome. Well, guys, welcome to the Man Within podcast. I'm your host, Sathiya Sam, and I have two incredible guys here from the podcast Men Talking Mindfulness, Will Schneider and Jon Macaskill. These guys are incredible. I got a chance to be on their podcast, and the title of their show kind of says it all. We know that men are experiencing all-time highs of anxiety, of depression, of overwhelm, of overstimulation. The list goes on and on. And even in my own practice, as we're helping guys quit pornography, we spend so much time talking about just slowing down and regulating. And so we are going to do all things related to mindfulness and meditation today to help you guys regulate your bodies, calm down your nervous systems, and more importantly, be in a state on a regular basis where you can make decisions that are aligned with your value system, where you guys can be present in the relationships that matter the most to you, and where you guys can be confident in the men that God has created you to be. And so it's going to be incredible. I couldn't think of two better people to be on here to discuss this. So without further ado, Will and Jon, welcome to the pod, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sathiya.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Very excited to be here. We've been looking forward to it since you came on our show, and you crushed it there. And we clearly had some overlap in the discussion. So we're very excited to be here.
Oh, awesome. So, Will, maybe you can start, just give us a little bit of background on who you are and then what kind of led into your involvement in Men Talking Mindfulness.
Hey, I'm based in New York City, a very high intensity city. And, I stepped into New York City actually into the acting and theater world. And that's how I began to find like these emotional regulation practices like yoga, breathwork, and meditation in order to just be more present, but also become more aware of the triggers of anxiety and stress that were kind of inhibiting performance, if you will. Yeah. And then that just led me to eventually letting go of acting in 2011. Is really like more of a quest for self-discovery. And the practices that I ended up, bringing into the profession of acting led me into, actually beginning to teach it. So I've been teaching meditation and breath work and yoga since 2010 here in the city, on various different forums, leading retreats, classes, and then the pandemic happened. I met Jon just before the pandemic. And we started just having conversations around mindfulness because we're both passionate about it. And then eventually we just took those conversations, and here we are 6 years later with like almost 280 episodes. We'll have 300 by the end of the year, and really creating a strong community and having a big impact and getting recognized for it. So it's really been an honor to do this work and to align with people like you, because one of the big problems that we see with our community is addiction, and porn addiction is probably one of the ones that ranks the highest.
Yeah. I've no issues believing that.
Yeah.
Jon, how about for you? A little bit of background, and how did you come to be part of the podcast?
Yeah, sure. So a little bit of background. Where do I start? So I'll work backwards. So I'm living in Colorado Springs. So Will's in New York. I'm in Colorado Springs, straight across from the Air Force Academy. I can actually see it out the window, and I'll just go ahead and put out a disclaimer. It's graduation there today, and they fly these jets over for graduation. So you may hear them in the background. Hopefully not. But anyway, I digress. So I spent 24 years in the Navy, and 17 of that was in the Navy SEAL teams. And I had one particular operation that I was involved with that went horribly sideways. And we ended up losing a lot of guys. And that caused me a lot of survivor's guilt and moral injury. And ironically, it was an operation that I wasn't on. When I said I was involved in it, I was not on the battlefield. I was in the operations center. So one of the guys behind the computers and the radios that you see in the movies, that's where I was. And that's actually what caused me more grief than anything, is that I was not out there. So Will mentioned, he had started practicing to aid in performance. I was struggling with anxiety and the depression and that moral injury, and got introduced to it by a counselor. I had been self-medicating with prescription medication and alcohol and got to a very dark place. And this counselor recommended mindfulness and meditation, and he recommended it to address that stuff, the anxiety, the depression, the survivor's guilt. And I laughed at him. And then he kind of pivoted and he told me how it would improve my performance. So as a type A personality, I'm always looking for something that's going to help to improve my performance. And that was what sold me on it. Now, after practicing for quite some time, I started to feel the improvements in my performance. Yes. But at the same time, my anxiety went down. I was better able to deal with stress. I won't say the stress went away. It was still there. The guilt was still there, but it was just my relationship with all of it changed. And then I got introduced to Will, like you said, in 2019, right before the pandemic. And we were having these once a month phone calls, just the two of us. Like, I know you've done networking before, Sathiya, we all have. And typically when you do a networking call with someone, you talk to someone at the end of the call, you're like, well, I'll probably never talk to that person again. Well, at the end of every single call, Will, bless his heart, he was like, hey man, so let's get the next call on the books. Let's talk again in another month. And we would. And then the pandemic hit, and Will, being a yoga instructor, he had to pivot to what he was doing online, to taking his online or in-person stuff to online. And he was doing Instagram live stuff. And I saw it. I was like, oh, I didn't even know what Instagram live was at the time. And I started to see it. And I was like, hey, Will, these conversations that we have once a month, why don't we just start having them on Instagram live? And long story short, that Instagram live became what is today the Men Talking Mindfulness podcast.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, got it. So this actually kind of started out of the organic conversations you guys are having. And then obviously, I think we all remember that big shift that happened 2020.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice like a pretty big shift in people's needs as well for mindfulness and meditation, and people trying to kind of deal with all the anxiety? Because that was a pretty stressful year.
It was definitely, there's quite a bit of that. People really lost, and people really seeking connection in a big way during that time. It's just all the isolation and the stupid social distancing and stuff like that we had to endure. And, it just really left people. And I just think of our lives. Like, people are used to, Jon and I, the three of us are entrepreneurs. So we're used to like we have flexibility in our schedule. We're building our own schedule. We're always looking, like a week, a month, years out sometimes to hit our goals, where, a lot of the population is just like a 9 to 5. And like, so, just what they do in between or on the other sides of that 9 to 5 is like, is typically the rest of their life. So a lot of people got out of that routine and was like, oh my God, who am I? Yeah. So, so it actually, it was almost like we were called forth to do this in some ways, because like the need was just so great that I think there's this like a divine calling, if you will, to really bring this work. And for us, it's like, we are Men Talking Mindfulness. We, do service, everybody can listen to the podcast, but, just because of who we are, what we do, and probably men being the first word in our podcast title, we're still at about, almost 70% men that tune in. And, we're glad that we're having these conversations, and it's really been, it's changed a lot of things, but like we've helped to, change men, and we get continual comments and stuff like that all the time. It's like how one little practice or one thing we did or something we offered, really starts to make a big difference in someone's life.
It makes sense. Sorry, Jon, go ahead.
No, the timing, we certainly didn't plan it being like, hey, well, the COVID, the anxiety level, stress level, all that's going to go up. We just started talking, and it just so happened, clearly, as we all know, that all of that did go up. I mean, I can't imagine for parents, let's just talk about parents, right? I've got 3 young kids, and they weren't in school. They were in, daycare and stuff. And that was stressful enough, trying to find a park or something that the kids could play at without worrying about social distancing. But like parents of teenage kids who were in school, and now they had to stay home and go to school virtually, I mean, the stress levels for those parents and those kids, quite frankly, I can't even imagine. So yeah, as a nation, as a world for that matter, yeah, the stress level was off the charts, and the timing of the show couldn't have been better. I mean, because that's
Yeah.
literally what we address: is we address stress, we address anxiety, we address tools to work together in a relationship, as you know, as parents, as spouses, as coworkers. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's worked out.
Yeah, and I want to get into some of that stuff that you guys are doing because I think it's really powerful. But my curiosity is getting the better of me. So, Will, you were an actor, and I can see how like meditation regulation would naturally fit into that. You know, like I'm thinking of, you're getting ready before, whatever it is, a performance.
Yeah.
That stuff goes a long way, right? Like you have to be in the right state. And I'm thinking, John, a Navy SEAL. So again, same thing, like you're getting ready for an operation. But I guess my question is for you, John, do they talk to you about regulating or meditation or anything along those lines to like kind of get into a good state before you go on a mission or into an operation? Or is this mostly stuff that you learned after?
Yeah, great question. Funny enough, I did learn it in the SEAL teams initially. We were essentially doing box breathing on the shooting range. As maybe we were getting anxious about our shots or whatever, the box breathing would bring our anxiety level down. It would bring our breath rate, our respiratory rate down, our heart rate down, and we would be able to shoot better. The same thing with what we call the kill house, the thing that you see in all the movies where we go into different rooms and clear the rooms. Well, that's when you're doing that with paintballs or simunitions, is what we call them. That's fun. But then when you start doing it with live ammunition and the guy behind you and the guy in front of you has a live weapon that you can get shot with,
Wow.
that's pretty anxiety inducing. And so
Yeah.
we would do some breathing exercises beforehand, but we didn't call it mindfulness. We didn't call it breath work. We just said, hey, let's calm ourselves down and reset. And it worked. It worked awesome. And then when the counselor that I mentioned before recommended mindfulness and meditation to me, I laughed at him. And then the actual practice that he introduced to me was one that I had been practicing in the SEAL teams, box breathing. And so I will say that in the last, I don't know, it must have been 5 or 6 years, mindfulness and meditation has gotten much bigger within the military. As a matter of fact, Will and I interviewed a retired lieutenant general or major general who brought mindfulness and meditation to the Army, General Walt Pyatt. He's now the CEO of the Wounded Warrior Foundation. And same thing with him is initially there was like this pushback, hey, why do we want to do this? And he had a neuroscientist, Dr. Amishi Jha, come on and talk with him. And he brought it to his brigade, and he ended up really changing the perception of mindfulness and meditation within the military service.
Wow. Wow. Okay, got it. So you kind of had like a bit of a foundation, but then obviously like almost relearned it in a new context
Oh,
once you were
100%.
seeing therapy and all that. Yeah.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, so maybe as sort of a starting point, a couple words that get thrown around not interchangeably, but all they get lumped together: breath work, mindfulness, and meditation. So one of you guys draw some lines in the sand here. What are these three things, and how are they different from each other?
Yeah. So, well, I think that's what it's really, that's a great question. A great way to start, because that's one thing that John and I continually kind of work against is like defining these terms. Everyone just hears any three of those terms and they just immediately kind of lump them into the same category, which, I mean, they are kind of in the same category, but they also
Yeah.
get very dismissive of them because they just don't understand them, because it's something like this work goes deeper, right? It's really so much about like mindfulness is really about awareness. I mean, that's like the fundamental definition of just being mindful is being aware. But then what mindfulness helps us to do with that awareness is to if we're aware of like, oh my God, I'm anxious, like, I'm just an absolute mess being on stage, or like whatever it is, whatever circumstance, it's like, okay, now I need to do something about that. And that's when practice that, and then we get into the practices that are part of mindfulness. So you wake up and then it's like, okay, now what do I do? It's like, oh, let's do some breath work. Box breathing, like Jon was talking about, is a great way to calm yourself down, get away from that amygdala hijack, away from all the habits, away from all, that stupid thinking, if you will, like the irrational thought mind that we can typically put on. And then so we breathe, or it's like, what also is going to help me to go even a little bit deeper, to know myself a little bit more intimately, so I can make different choices, and also become aware, more mindful of the things that trigger me into habits like consuming more pornography or whatever it is. Meditation is very helpful to do that as well, because you're just sitting, observing, whether that's an emotional rise and fall, whether that's a thought pattern, whether it's just like feelings on the inside, getting to really know yourself deeply, and understand that, we have this somatic experience. So these feelings come from within us, and then they usually they turn into some sort of action typically. So that's those three. And then there's many, many different, once we become aware, it's like there's many different practices that help us to continually be more aware, but be more aware of how we want to do, what we want to do with our time, our energy, our money, our resources, our relationships. So I think that's one of the best ways I could explain it, unless I'm missing something.
I'll add, I don't think you're missing anything there, Will. I think you got it. But I will add, although I guess saying I'll add it does mean you're missing something, but it's just
oh good.
It's just semantics. But the way that I think about it, how about that, is I'm a math nerd. That's what I got my degree in. I imagine Venn diagrams, right? The circles with the overlapping sides and intersections, unions. The way that I think about it is there's one big circle that's wellness. And within that wellness circle, you've got spiritual wellness, you've got physical wellness, emotional, mental. And I think mindfulness, meditation, and breath work kind of address all four of those: the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional wellness. And they affect, they're just different tools to affect all four of those, right? And there's definitely overlap between those, and there's overlap between the tools. The way, like Will described it, mindfulness is awareness. Mindfulness isn't necessarily a practice. Now, people will say practice mindfulness, but mindfulness is a way of being, right? You can say be mindful instead of necessarily practicing mindfulness. Now, there are mindful meditations where you are meditating and doing a formal practice where you are intentionally being mindful. But the three of us right here, we're being mindful right now, right? We don't have 37 tabs open on our computer. I'm not doing something over here, or I'm doing something over there while I'm barely paying attention to you guys. We're all three in the moment right here. And that's mindfulness. The breath work is really important to reset your nervous system, settle your mind, settle your body. And the meditation is a very formal practice where you're sitting, focusing on some type of anchor or a mantra, or going through, self-compassion, loving kindness practices. So yeah, there's definitely overlap, but there's also differences.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like mindfulness is sort of the goal at the end of the day, right? We want to be more aware, we want to be more present, but then meditation and breath work are things that help you get there, right? And I guess they're the most common one. Like you said, Will, they're not the only things, but they're certainly maybe some of the more prominent ones. Okay, let's break down. If mindfulness is kind of the target in it all, which I think most people would agree. I think most people say, I do want to be more present, and I do want to feel more regulated and make better decisions. So what are some indicators that somebody is becoming more mindful? Like I think we've at least started to. I would say my audience definitely has some understanding of. I know when I'm dysregulated. I know the tightness in my chest, the heart racing, the darting between the 37 tabs. Like I don't know how people keep all those tabs open. Goodness gracious, I'm anxious just talking about it. But I know some people do it. What are some indicators? Because we talked about this before we hit record. Most people have tried one of these things at some point. They tried some breath work, or they tried, I think meditation is probably the typical one where it's like, yeah, I tried that. It didn't work for me because, XYZ. But I sometimes wonder if, in addition to maybe not being consistent enough with things, which we'll definitely get into at the more practical part of the conversation, I wonder sometimes if also people don't know what to look for to indicate that it is actually working. Because we think very binary, like either I'm regulated or I'm dysregulated, and I still feel the tightness in my chest after I did box breathing once. So, I don't think it's really for me. What are some signs what are things that people can be looking for if they're trying to become more mindful? What are the indicators they're actually doing it?
Yeah.
Well, I would say, the jumping in and saying after one practice, it's not working for me. I've done that myself. I've done that
Yeah.
multiple times myself. And it's like going to the gym and lifting weights for half an hour and then looking in the mirror and saying, oh, well, this isn't working for me. Right.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it's not going to work for you in one workout, but after, maybe 2 months, then you're going to start to see the difference. And after a year, you're going to see a massive difference and feel the difference. The same thing with mindfulness and meditation is it takes time, it takes effort, it takes discipline, it takes consistency. And the things that I noticed first, funny enough, so when I started practicing that box breath, I was less reactive. Some guy in traffic would cut me off, or I don't know, my spouse would say something, and which would normally tick me off. I was less reactive. Now, funny enough, Will probably be like, John, you're still very reactive. I mean, this morning we were having a text conversation back and forth, and I was probably overly reactive. I'm a sensitive guy, man. I'm in touch with my feelings. I'm very sensitive.
Way too much. Just kidding.
But
Me too.
But anyhow, I think the first thing that I noticed was less reactivity, and then I was actually more focused in the moment rather than, like I mentioned, having the 37 tabs open on my screen. I was able to focus on one thing at a time. And in doing so, I was actually getting through those things and feeling more fulfilled. Or I was more present with my spouse. I was more present with my kids. And I'm an avid practitioner. But there are still times when I may go 2 or 3 days without practicing, and I'm like, oh man, I haven't practiced. And I know there's a difference.
Feel the difference.
I feel it. I feel it in my heart, my soul, but I also feel it in my body and my reactivity. I bet if my kids, I've got young kids, like I mentioned, if I was to ask them, hey, do you notice a difference in me? They would probably be able to say so as well. But yeah, the reactivity and the focus, in your life and in your relationships, I think that's the biggest thing that I noticed first off.
I'll add that when you start making different choices, like that, this is like when you start to see, pornography consumption, for example. Like if you're, you're listening to this podcast because you want to change something, right? And I think you're right, Sathiya. Like a lot of people think that, if I'm not, and this is very masculine, what I'm going to say. It's like, if I'm not great at it right now, or if I don't nail it on the first time, that I'm going to try something and all of a sudden become like a perfect enlightened master, then I'm a failure and I'm not going to do it again because I don't want to feel like a failure. Like all this work, everything that change requires time, consistency, and technique, right? And also accountability is what I'll add to that as well. So when you start to see yourself making different choices and being more, creating more self-agency of your time, of your resources, of the people you're hanging out with, I think that's when you really begin to see mindfulness really begin to take effect, or you becoming more aware of your choices of all those things that I've mentioned. And I think like any practice, and especially these practices, because it's like, I think going to the gym is great, and, getting out running and staying healthy and being in the body is like, kind of, especially for men, it like wakes up, a part of our biology, especially our testosterone. So we feel that like euphoric rush of going to the gym. So we have a greater likelihood, I feel, of repeating that because of just like, because we're in the body more. But when you begin to find your breath, meditate, like, become mindful of and take on a mindful practice, it's like there's a lot more internal machinery that begins to wake up, that doesn't necessarily, it might not seem so inspirational or so have such a physical veracity to it. So and that's why I think it's seen as weak, or because it's very challenging to go on the inside and start tinkering around to become more present. It's very, very challenging, and I see men that come to the yoga room, and it's not so much anymore, but like they just really, they think it's like a competitive thing. Right, where you're only
I'm gonna
really
be more mindful than you.
or just better at yoga, which is like a physical.
I beat yoga.
I beat yoga. Yeah, so it's just like yoga, like the physical aspect called asana practice. It's like, because it's the physical, it immediately gets put compartmentalized into the competitive realm in man. So it's like, so just like, so I think noticing making different choices, but also another thing I'll say is noticing whatever that urge is to abuse or use in some way. I think when that starts to wake up and you become aware of that, and and honestly, like I might be aware kind of all the time, but then I'm only making different choices 30% of the time. But it's like, if you look at a baseball player, like the best batters in the world are batting 400. You know what I mean? So, give yourself that grace that it's just like, do the best you can, keep showing up, keep exercising and doing the work, and get in like groups like yours, because that accountability is very inspiring on so many different levels. So it's a slow process. It's a very slow process, but it's worth it because it changes all your relationships to yourself, to others, and you can really make a huge shift in your life by continually and searching and discovering how to become more mindful and the practices that go along with it.
And Sathiya, if I may, I'm just going to take a quick opportunity to make a shameless pitch, or maybe shameful pitch. But like Will talked about with the accountability piece, right? You have a community here with your podcast and your program. We just yesterday launched this course here. It's the Awareness to Action course. A2A is what we call it. And it's a course, yes, but it's also a community. And that's where we really think it sets everything apart from the apps, from the retreats, right? The retreats are great in the moment, but then when you come home, now what do I have, right? This offers 12-week course, but you have lifetime access or a year access to it. But it's more importantly is the community that we can hold one another accountable. We can support one another. And it's out there now, Awareness to Action. And we'd love to share it with your community.
No, that's amazing. I think that's such a gift, guys, what you guys are doing. And Jon, you create content for the Calm app, right?
I do.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So you guys are getting some really high quality stuff in there. So so we'll make sure there's a link there. But I think that's great you're doing it. What you were saying a minute ago, Will, reminded me of I had a year where, so this is a practice I've done where I used to be very voracious with my reading, and I can read quick, I ingest information quickly, fast processor, very academic, all that kind of stuff. But I've really slowed down my reading, and not just so slowing down the pace, that's one thing, but also like reading a book multiple times in a year. So I had one year where I just read one book, and I probably made it through about 6 times. It was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
An all-time classic. Yeah. And he has this statement in here. He tells this story actually about, he doesn't even remember who initially authored this thought. It was just a book he had read in a library when he was doing some research. But they talked about how the best decisions and the real measure of somebody's strength is the distance between stimulus and response. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking of that as you were talking about just a minute ago, because I think that gap has narrowed for most of us. Yeah. Like Jon, you mentioned when you observed that you were being more mindful, you were less reactive. But that gap sometimes is a bit of a question mark. We know we should be less reactive. We know that it's okay for people to have their, make bad decisions or say things that hurt us, but we shouldn't necessarily be reacting that way. So I think what you guys are providing is actually some really practical ways to enlarge that gap between stimulus and response. One thing I wanted to ask on the subject of mindfulness, are there practical things that are maybe not necessarily in the vein of breath work and meditation, but just practical things that you guys do that help you to stay mindful. I'm thinking in our context, one of the first things we do when a guy wants to quit pornography is we talk through his tech. So what apps are on your phone? Do you have any boundaries on when you use your phone and when you don't? Yeah. Most pornography is viewed on the mobile phone at 10 o'clock at night. So charge your phone outside your bedroom starting at 9 p.m. And, that'll actually probably save you at nighttime quite a bit. Anything like that from just, I guess, a more practical perspective that can help people become more mindful? Let me pause here for a second, because as we're talking about this, you might be realizing there are areas of your life where you're just not experiencing the freedom or consistency you want. I see this all the time in my clients when I'm helping them quit pornography. And for a lot of these men, it's not a lack of desire, it's that they don't actually have a clear process to get there. That's exactly why this month I'm running a free masterclass called How to Quit Porn for Good. I had a guy join recently, high performer, disciplined, really sharp, but behind the scenes, there was still this cycle he couldn't break. And within the first hour, he realized why nothing had worked up until that point, and he had a clear plan for how to move forward. Because this isn't about trying harder, it's about following the right system that gets you the results. So in the training, I'm going to break down the neuroscience, the spiritual side, and the step-by-step process we use with our clients so you can actually build momentum and get the same results. So if you're ready to stop guessing, to actually move forward, brother, this is your next step. You can register for free. Just check the link in the show notes or go to deepcleancoaching.com/masterclass. All right, let's keep going.
I'll definitely jump on that. Like, it's like, I think you every day you need to start your day on your terms. And, it's instead of like, technology is a big problem for most people. And we keep our phones in our bedroom, or it's typically the first thing we check in the morning, whether it's social media, email, whatever it is, it's all going to trigger you in some way. It's all this. I think people, maybe we're just not heard enough. This is just a slot machine. This is just a manipulation device, most of the time, right? So as soon as you begin to engage with it, dopamine is a big part of our biology, and we're looking for this reward system, of just feeling good, like little short. We know this through all the work what we talked about on your show about, or on our show with you about, how pornography makes us feel like this, gives us a little temporary high, and then it falls. We do it again and again and again. So from a practical perspective, it's like, what can you do, even if it starts as little as 5 minutes in the morning, to take ownership of your day, right? Whether that's getting up, going for a walk, or doing something that, I think physical is very good. Maybe get up, take a cold shower, wake up your body in some way and take ownership for what you're doing. Right. And just keep repeating it. It's because we're habitual beings. Right. And if we've been waking up the same way for the last 20, 30, 40 years, it's tough to make those changes. But start small. Accountability is really good. And I think that ownership of your day, first thing in the morning, whatever that can look like. And it could be a myriad of ways that it could express itself. That's up to you. But something that is going to put you in okay, this is my day. This is my experience. This is my mind, right? This is my technology. One thing I'll say about technology that I ask, and then I'll stop, is I ask people in our corporate gigs that we do, and also with the one-on-one work we do with people. It's like, who's in control, you or your technology? Right. Oh, wow. And if you don't know that answer to that question, then your technology is in control of you. And it's just so just even asking that simple question, if anyone listening doesn't know that answer, then it's time to create a different relationship to your phone. And what is one thing you could do after listening to this that you can do in order to change that relationship? Because it's going to make a big difference in how you're showing up in the world all the time.
John, just before you chime in, I just have to say, in module 1 of the Deep Clean program, we have a lesson that's all about optimizing your tech for recovery, is what we call it. Yeah. And I actually have a statement in that video: if you do not control your tech will control you. Yeah. Almost verbatim what you just said. So 100%. We're on the same page there, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was gonna add with the tech. When we were growing up, right? When we were younger, rather, we're still growing up. When we were younger, and you had to go and buy pornography at the store, right? There was this sense of embarrassment, right? I think on our show, you talked about anonymity and how you can just access porn all the time now, right? And it's free. Well, is it free? Because truly, like Will said, if you're in control of your tech or your tech is in control of you, well, if that porn is free, then what's the product? Well, the product is you, right? If a product is free, then you are the product.
That's right.
And I also wanted to just echo the fact that the gap that you talked about between stimulus and response. We literally did a webinar on that very thing yesterday. Was the gap?
Oh wow!
And how to inject that and then eventually widen that gap. And I've got Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning here.
That's right.
He's quoted as saying, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And yes, we're talking about, the gap between stimulus and response, but also what about the gap between desire and action, right? The desire, maybe you're laying there in your bed bored. Maybe you're on a trip, a hotel. I know that was where I struggled a lot with pornography, was when I was on a work trip and I was alone in my hotel room and I'm bored and I'm like, oh, well, may as well pick up some porn and okay. So but why am I doing that? Well, to analyze my desire, I think that's an important gap to also work to implement in our lives. Is why am I doing that? Well, in our show, you talked about when the eyes were analyzed when people were watching pornography, and how right before the climax, men are normally looking at the face of the woman, and it's because they're looking for a relationship. That's, if I remember correctly, that's what we talked about, and that is typically, I think, where men are struggling, is their desire is not necessarily for the physical aspect, but it's some type of intimacy. It could be having a talk with someone. It could be going and having a dinner with someone. It could be having eye to eye contact with the one that you love, and even if that's via a Zoom call. I think that's where we have to inject those pauses as well, or those gaps, as well as the gap between stimulus and response. The other thing I wanted to say, and then I'll stop rambling, is yes, charging your phone outside of your bedroom, trying to stay off of your phone. We talk about the gap between stimulus and response, but also how many stimuli are we exposed to every single day? I mean, on average, I don't know what the number is, but I would assume the average 20, 30 years ago was significantly less. Now we don't only get stimuli, but we invite these stimuli into our lives intentionally, right? We wake up. If you are charging your phone in your room, typically what people use their phone for is their alarm. They roll over, grab their phone, turn off their alarm, and instantly start checking email or social media. And with that, that's before you even get out of bed, you've probably been exposed to more stimuli than the average person was 30, 40 years ago in their day. So think about having that many stimuli increased. Now you have to be more intentional about implementing that gap and increasing and widening that gap. So the phone is a huge one. Slot machine, absolutely. It's designed to steal your attention.
It's crazy. Yeah, I heard a study the other day that the average attention span, I think late 90s, was somewhere between 13 and 20 minutes. Obviously, a bit of a range. But more recently, studies are showing like the typical human attention span is between 7 and 10 seconds.
It's less than a goldfish.
It's been totally dwarfed. Yeah, less than a goldfish. It's kind of wild.
Right.
It's
nuts. So just in case anybody thought they were exempt, I think hopefully these examples are showing like the world we live in is actually programming us away from mindfulness, and whether
deliberately, right? Deliberately, because money, it's all about money, right? Yeah. Because that's why they call. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's why they call this the attention economy.
Yes.
It's so. Yeah, please continue. I just
and that's exactly it. And I think the truth of the matter is it's always been an attention economy, as in whatever gets people's attention always drives it. It's just that it's so competitive now because everybody has discovered that, and our attention spans are shorter. There's more options and opportunity and everything else. So again, just to echo, I think what you guys are doing and what we're discussing here is incredibly important. Let's talk about breath work. So you mentioned box breathing. Talk us through that for maybe somebody who doesn't know. I actually learned that from a SEAL. I don't know how many
Oh,
years ago
really?
it was as well. Yeah.
Mark
And he,
Divine.
no, his name was Yost. Yost. I'm
Okay.
forgetting his last name,
Okay.
Oh, I
but
know.
it was at a, it
Shoot,
was
I
at,
know who you're talking about.
Oh, I do too. I was at a conference with him, but yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that was at a business owner mastermind a couple of years ago. And he actually taught it to a guy that wound up mentoring me. That was kind of the connection there. But maybe just talk us through, why is breathwork so important? I would love for you guys to explain box breathing. I think that's always a good entry point. And just anything else that people need to know about breathwork from a beginner's perspective.
Well,
Yeah.
it's all about regulating. I'll just do the science. I have a degree in biology, so I really enjoy
Let's go.
talking about this as well. So do you, right?
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, you do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's just like it's all about regulating your nervous system. I mean, that's why breath is so important. It's like most of us, like the way, when I'm teaching meditation and breath work, which kind of I put hand in hand because one really helps to bring you into the other. And I really talk about like with breathing, it's just like a lot of us, because, we're waking up and checking our phone in the morning, we're getting all these stimuli and we're being emotionally manipulated. We're usually living in, this state of fight, flight, or freeze, right? Which in this state of emotional being and then that creates a mental state. We're driven by cortisol and adrenaline, and our breath typically is very shallow, and then we just keep exacerbating the adrenaline and cortisol rush, and we keep just living in this state of like mild panic, if you will, or a state of stress and anxiety. And we're not of a rational brain. Our neocortex is not online. We're being driven by our reptilian brain that tells us that there's a threat around us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we know what it means. What I'm sure everyone that's listening knows what it's like to be emotionally driven and making bad decisions and regretting those decisions and be like, God, well, how did I do this again? By understanding what I'm saying here, but then understanding it from an experiential level and getting to know your breath. I talk about creating the most important relationship in your entire being is a relationship with your breath. Because if you become aware of your breath, know how to manipulate your breath, take that breath nice and deep, slow it down, you begin to eradicate that cortisol and adrenaline that's in your bloodstream, and you shift from a neurological state that's called the sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, into part of the nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system, which are calm, cool, and connected to yourself, to what matters, to the environment. You're being more present. And that's when we begin to put on our neocortex, our rational brain, which has like the left and right side of the brain is working for us. Our working memory is working for us as well, so we can make better decisions based on things we've done in the past. And we're really just here, more present, and just being an adult instead of a child, right? Driven by emotions. It's just like, I want. And just, being triggered by anything inside or outside. So that's so getting to know that breath. And it could take a long time, like as far like weeks, in order to drop the breath down, or and just even to just be aware of your breath. It's like a lot of the populations I work with here in New York City, which a lot of the people here are pretty, they're always looking for that next little tool to get them to the next level of success. They haven't taken a deep breath in months or years. And when they take that breath, you can just see the light goes on. You can just see, the workshops we do, you can see when we do the breath work, like their shoulders are relaxing, they put a smile on your face, and they're just naturally more present. And these are all the gifts that creating this relationship and working to strengthen that relationship on a regular basis with time, consistency, technique, accountability, the things we're talking about here. And this is when you become more present. This is when you begin to really make a difference in your life, because you naturally become aware because of the gift that the breath brings to you, and by creating that relationship. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. It's really powerful. It's the most important thing you do in anything that you want to change is using your breath. But John.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Well, first off, I got to apologize for being kind of fidgety over here. I went skydiving this weekend and had a hard landing
Oh,
right on
jeez.
my tailbone. So
oh, the worst.
sitting hurts. So I'm sometimes shuffling around. But anyhow,
Oh, that's
I
cool.
want to talk about the box breath. So everything that Will mentioned biologically is happening is spot on. The one other thing that I will add is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is kind of the light switch, if you will, that toggles your body between that sympathetic and parasympathetic state of the nervous system. And to activate that vagus nerve, that can be done through intentional breathing, and specifically box breathing is great. 4-7-8 breathing is great. 4-7-8 is where you breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, breathe out for a count of 8. If your exhale is as long or longer than your inhale, that is your body signaling to your brain that you are safe. And if your body and your brain and your nervous system feel that they are safe, that's when you can downregulate and feel calmer. So the box breathing, the mechanics of it, many of us have heard of it. But the reason it's called that is you're breathing in for a count of 4. So that's the first edge of the box. Holding for a count of 4. So that's the top of the box. Breathing out for a count of 4. That's the other edge of the box. And then holding for another count of 4. That's the bottom of the box. And you do that 4, 5, 6 times, however many times you feel you can. And that specific controlled breathing technique is a way of activating that vagus nerve, which again is the light switch for the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, the rest and digest side of things. So that's box breathing, and biologically why it happens, in the actual tactical practice of it, what it looks like.
Well, why don't we do the 4-7-8 breath now? You know,
Yeah.
it's like, we'll just
Yeah.
do a couple
I was
rounds. So,
thinking
it's like,
that, yeah.
so, you know, if you're feeling like, oh, I got to see some boobies, stop. Right? We're going to do a little. This is a very simple practice. We'll just do 3 rounds and just watch how it really begins to change you. One thing that you can do in order to just get in touch with more of your breath as we go through this, like closing your eyes, could be very helpful, because it takes that, you know, one of your major senses, the eyes, that brings in so much information that can just kind of be disruptive, and you can get very easily distracted. So you can bring a hand in your belly, a hand onto your chest, or maybe just keep them on your belly, because we're really trying to get that breath down deep. Like I talked about, it has a very significant neurological impact. And we're just going to in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8, just blowing out like through the mouth, just gently, like you're blowing out a candle. We're going to inhale through the nose. And that's what we're going to do 3 rounds. And just maybe just check in for a moment with the eyes closed and just notice, you know, how you're feeling. This is a big part of mindfulness, knowing where you are and what your emotional state is and mental state is right now. So just take a moment and drop in there, and it's okay, whatever it is. Like, no judgment, no criticism. Just be even aware of that judgment and criticism, and just be with things as they are right for this moment. And let's see what happens without expectations. Just doing 3 rounds of this 4-7-8 breath. Let's start with a nice little exhale all the way out. I really want you to get empty, 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 and really want you to feel and experience that emptiness, right? And let's take that first inhale for 4 seconds. 3, 2, good. 1, right? Let's hold that breath nice and easy, but stay soft in your face, jaw, and shoulders for 6, 5, 4, 3. And just exhale nice and easy out through your mouth. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Keep going. Empty. 2, 1. Good. Inhale again. In for 4, 3. Big balloon breath. 3, 2, 1. Hold easy. 7, 6, 5. Exhale slowly out. 8, 7, 6. Nice and easy. Not necessarily forcing, but just gently pushing for 3, 2, 1. We'll do one more time. Inhale, big belly breath in. 4, feeling like the balloon filling your body, right from the bottom to the middle to the top. Hold that balloon nice and easy. You know, so really stay soft in your face, jaw, shoulders. Feel your seat for the next 3, 2, 1, and exhale out. 8, 7, 6, 5. And good. Just take a normal breath in. And just notice how you're feeling. What's changed? Like your alarm's going off. I hear that. It's like, oh my God, maybe I'm a different person right now, right? And it's like, and this is where it begins. This is where change begins. Just if you would do this, like, I still have my eyes closed, right? So it's like, if you, this is the way that you start your day. That 5 minutes that you can control your morning. Just doing this breathing practice for 5 minutes, you watch what can potentially change. So. Yeah, we can come back,
Thank
open
you
your
for doing
eyes.
that.
It's
so
like,
good.
this is how simple it is, right? But again, it's like we say, make the time, right? And then do the work. And then just keep
Yeah.
repeating those two things. And that's it. And this is where ownership of your experience could start, just by something this simple. So how do you feel after that, Sathiya, with like after doing that practice for just 3 rounds?
Yeah, I just feel more settled. And it's funny because this morning, I know, John, you have kids. Will, do you have kids?
No, not yet. No, I'm
Okay.
hoping. But yeah,
Okay,
anyway,
cool.
yeah.
So my wife at like it was 6:15. She said, I forgot to turn on the baby monitor. The kids have been up for a while. We got to go get them. They're little, so they're still in their cribs. So that's how I woke up this morning. And so she's out. She's going to check up on them. And I was in a really good sleep state, so I can just feel all of a sudden the frenetic panic. And I literally did this. I just said, okay, I have to get up. She needs me. I'm just gonna take a few deep breaths and just really kind of slow myself through it. And that was, I wouldn't say I felt perfectly regulated. There was a lot going on that morning, but it widened that gap a little bit. And I felt that again just as we were doing this. Just, oh yeah, I feel so much more present in the conversation. Even here, having the eyes closed and just hearing you talk was really regulating for me. So that I'm feeling
Yeah.
good, loosey
Yeah.
goosey over here.
Yeah, good. And this is what it does. This is what, get to know your breath, taking ownership of your breath, practicing a breathing technique. Box breath is probably even has more of a relaxation effect. If you have trouble sleeping, box breathing, just 5 minutes before you go to bed, in for 5, hold for 5, out for 5, stay empty for 5. Just do that for 5 minutes. Like God, I've seen my sleep just, I wear like the Whoop so I can monitor my heart.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
it's just, I can see my heart rate just drops like significantly, like 10%. It's pretty,
Wow.
or even more. So this is like the power of your breathing. It's like, it's the first thing we do when we come in this world. I believe that our life is based on the quality of our breath until we take that last breath and go out. That's how important
Yeah.
it is. It's everything.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for walking us through that. I love
Yeah.
the practice there. Gave me some ideas too, because we always do a regulating exercise at the end of our coaching calls, and I love the way you facilitated that.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to ask a little bit about, how can guys, maybe like you just mentioned, how guys can start, and I want to put a bit of maybe like a plan together or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But meditation. So
Mm.
the first time I ever did breath work, I was at actually the same mastermind I had referenced a few minutes ago. We're all there to grow, scale our business, crush it in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this guy goes, I brought in a breathwork specialist. And so my buddy and I are kind of like, oh, okay, well, whatever. Kind of just shrug your shoulders, and hope for the best. And I'm not kidding you. It's probably 30 guys, some really, really successful guys, and some guys that, like myself, that at the time were just figuring things out. And probably half the room, by the end of this exercise, you can audibly hear them sobbing. It was
Mm.
so powerful because I think, Will, number one, like you said, these guys were taking a deep breath for probably the first time in a long time. Very type A, super driven, scale, grow, very demanding at home. A lot of them young families, or, at least marriages and stuff to keep them busy there. But the breath work is where it started. But where I can remember, I actually remember one guy in particular, a really tough guy, a guy you wouldn't really expect to engage with an exercise like this. And he was just a pile of mush. Happened during the meditation part. So the facilitator had kind of used the breath work to settle us. His name's Joey House. He's actually been on the podcast. And then he walked us through a really powerful meditation exercise that I listened back. I listened back to one of his trainings or something like that. I'm like, this guy's not doing anything. He asked like 3 questions spread out over like, I don't know, 17 minutes. But they were such great questions. He had us in such a regulated state. Like we all know this, right? Like the masters of anything know how to simplify, right? And just get it,
very true.
Keep it so simple. So he really was a master in that regard. So we've talked about breath work. We just practiced breath work. Talk to me now, guys, about meditation. How does this play into it, and what does it look like when it's being done effectively?
Yeah, funny you should say that piece about the big tough guys in this entrepreneurial state. And my mastermind, Will and I, we work with a lot of blue collar workers, and specifically, like if you talk about mindfulness and meditation, the blue collar workers, I mean that.
No thanks.
I love my blue collar workers. I love them. They're the salt of the freaking earth. But some of the biggest, burliest guys, when we first mentioned that we're going to be doing meditation, you can see their eyes kind of glaze over, and they're like, "Oh man, I could be somewhere else.
Here we go,
doing something better, more important." And by the end of the workshops, some of those biggest, burliest, stone-faced guys come up to us, and they have the most profound experiences with either the workshops, the meditation retreats that we do. It's incredible to see it happening. But yeah, I'll say that. So we've talked about the breath work. We just did an example of breath work. We've talked about mindfulness, and basically it's awareness and being present in the here and now. And I want to add one piece to it. Jon Kabat-Zinn is kind of the father of mindfulness and meditation, or rather mindfulness in the West. And I do air quotes because mindfulness has been around a lot longer than Jon Kabat-Zinn has. But he kind of formalized the definition of mindfulness, and he added this piece is that you are aware, you're intentionally present, paying attention with intention, without judgment. And that's one piece that we haven't spoken about, because a lot of the experiences that we feel in our lives, we judge ourselves for having those experiences, for those actions that we take. We label them good or bad. They are just experiences, and we don't need to judge them. So coming back to the meditation piece, tons of different types of meditation out there. If you get on your app store and you just Google meditation or search for meditation. I love the fact that the word Google has become synonymous with the word search. But if you search for meditation within your app store, you're going to find tons of different meditation apps out there. And some of them are better than others. And then within those apps, there's going to be thousands of different types of meditation, thousands of different teachers. Now, really what it all boils down to is some type of focus on something. It could be focusing on your breath. So that's kind of combining breath work and meditation. You could be focused on a body scan, which is focused on the physical sensations from like your toes up to your head and back down, or vice versa. You could be focused on a mantra. You could be focused on, we've done in some of our retreats, we've done a candle meditation. You literally light the candle, keep your eyes open, and you just focus on the flame. And what that does is you're focusing on an anchor, and you notice during that meditation that your mind is going to wander. That's another thing we haven't talked about really during this episode, is that people also quit meditation because they're like, well, my mind just wanders. Well, that's completely natural. That's going to happen. I can't
stop thinking.
I can't stop thinking. I can't clear my mind. Well, meditation is not going to clear your mind. What it can do is help to settle your mind, settle your nervous system, settle your body. But anyway, the focusing on an anchor, so much like a ship, right? A ship does not stay immediately above the anchor. If you drop that anchor, it drifts off, but it always comes back, And that's really where the beauty of meditation is that you have an anchor. It could be your breath, a mantra, body scan, whatever. You notice that your mind has wandered off to, this text that you sent yesterday, or the fact that you haven't answered an email or whatever. Your mind wanders off just like it's going to. You notice that, and then you bring yourself back to the anchor, and you come back over and over and over. And that's where a lot of the beauty is. That's where a lot of the work, that is the practice. It's not clearing your mind. It's actually noticing that your mind has drifted off and then coming back. And that's where that's where meditation actually helps to complement being mindful. As you practice mindfulness and I'm mixing up my own words here. As you practice meditation, it's
Yeah.
easier to be more mindful in your life. And as you are more mindful, it's easier to meditate. So they complement one another.
Yeah.
What did I miss there, Will?
No, I think it's just we become more aware because we are intentionally trying to focus on whatever it is. Like I like to keep it. I teach meditation workshops here in the city, and I like to keep it real simple. I mean, I've learned. I've done a bunch of Vipassana meditations, and we only do two over a 10-day period, 10 hours a day, 100 hours of meditation. We're only practicing two techniques. First one is called Anapanasati, right? And all we're doing is doing the best we can to sharpen the mind by simply focusing on the breath in our nostrils. That's it for 1 hour every sit. All you're doing is coming back, right? And it's a lot of work. I mean, it is one of the most grueling things I've ever done. And then after for the next 6 days, if you don't leave because it's incredibly challenging, all we're doing is scanning the body for sensation over and over and over again, everything, like from every part of our body, and just noticing whatever the sensation is. And sometimes you're not even not even aware of those sensations, but just think of those two things: sharpen the mind by focusing on the breath in your nose, and becoming more physically aware helps you to become more somatically aware. And again, this all comes down to, because this is our body. This is what we live in. This is where our consciousness is. This is what we act from. So if we're aware of our body and our mind and what works, what doesn't work, then again, we're going to make different choices, typically. And this is the power of these practices. And, I think meditation is, I think it's been extremely profound for me. I meditate every morning. And like I mentioned, I teach a lot of meditation as well, because it just has made such a huge difference. I mean, not just to myself, but then in my relationships with other people. You can see when people are, because if I get more in touch with my instrument, then I can be more in touch with other people's instrument, because it's just how it works. It's like outside in, inside out. And often like people are just reflecting back to you, or you can see in yourself and them maybe at an earlier time in your life. It's like, oh yeah, I remember what it's like to be so unfocused or so unpresent. And also then it opens up the heart, so you can be more present, you can be more compassionate, you can be more empathetic. And that's when, again, things really change, because you are deciding to take control of your mind and your experience instead of the world. Like, again, same thing with the tech. It's like, if you're not in control, there's someone else is in control. Someone will gladly come in and take control.
Yeah.
And it's like, and this is that self-agency, the self-mastery part of mindfulness that really helps anybody that takes on these practices and really steps into the realm of like being aware and taking ownership. Like, that's when you're just like, you get really inspired, and you begin to see the world in a way the way it actually is, instead of you looking through some imaginary window and hoping it shows up the way you want it to be today, and it never does. And you always get depressed, you always get angry, and you keep doing the same stupid things.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's really no, it's really helpful though. I think it's good to hear that explanation and kind of hear the practice and what it looks like. Can you guys just double down a little bit on the no judgment part? I think that's a really important piece here.
huge.
I think especially with our audience and the people that we work with, there's a lot of self-criticism, a lot of self-judgment. And I think even in the practice of breath work, it can be like, oh, you're not doing it well enough. Do it better. Like, you have these little critical voices. I remember the first time I did breath work, I was breathing in so in like, like I basically choked on my air. I was trying to be the best at it, and then breathing out, and everybody can hear your nostrils because you're just like so intense. And the guy had to be like, bro, just chill, like slow down a little bit.
Right.
So just tell us a little bit more about the non-judgment piece and why that's so important for, I guess, effectively meditating.
Well, it helps us to let go of the mind when we are aware of our judgment, and just like don't listen to it, or don't try to change things because we're judging ourselves in some way. So just like it's at its core, it's just another way of the mind being activated and mind getting in the way of you being present here. Right. Again, so if you're not in control of your mind, your ego will try to be in control of your mind first and foremost. Right. And also some of that ego comes from, how we're raised, or, how we were, brought up in a lot of ways. And this again, it's going to help us to be aware of our mind by sitting and doing these practices. And judgment is going to be one of the first things. You're always going to be facing that judgment, because we're always so incredibly self-critical, and it gets in the way of us, again, just being here, just being present. But once you get to know what it means to be present, and when you are present, there's this natural peace that's also inside of us that just kind of comes along with presence. And that peacefulness that's within also helps us to just kind of not be so judgy, or at least be more aware of our judginess, and also give that some love too. And just like, hey, you know what, I hear you, I see you, but like, I don't need to breathe like how you want me to breathe right now, whatever. So it's just another ego expression. The mind trying to get in the way of what's going on right here, right now. But I think,
I think along with that ego, there's fear. Fear, shame, guilt, and like you said, Will, there's a lot of it may have to do with how we were raised. Maybe we were praised for doing good, and beat up for, not literally beat up, but figuratively beat up for doing poorly. And so we, in our minds, decided, okay, well, we have to be good at everything that we do. And every experience that we have has to be good. And if we're having something negative, then we need to get it out of our lives, cut it out of our lives. So the only way to cut it out of our lives is to judge it by identifying it as bad, and then being like, okay, this is bad, let's get it out. Now, that said, I will say that I think all of us know that pornography is in fact, we can judge pornography, and I don't want to judge use of it, because I've definitely struggled with it myself. But the industry itself can be judged. I'll just leave it at that. But the judging, we did an episode with a good friend of ours, Andy Reese. Andy is a retired Army lieutenant colonel. He served with special operations. He was not a special operator himself, but anyhow, he's become a mindset coach. And he talks about the fear of negative evaluation. Did I get that right, Will? FNE, I think that was it. Yeah. Fear of negative evaluation. And like Will said, you've got guys who come into these yoga studios and they want to crush yoga. They're like, I will be number one. I will be the best yogi in the studio today, day one. And then they aren't, and then they never come back. Well, that's the danger of judgment, is that you're going to talk yourself out of doing something incredible. You're going to talk yourself out of the mindfulness and meditation practice. You're going to talk yourself out of, becoming an entrepreneur. You're going to talk yourself out of staying away from pornography. You're like, not to continue saying, hey, we did an episode on, but we recently did an episode with Nir Eyal, and Nir is the author of Indistractable, Hooked, and his latest book is Beyond Belief. And the whole point is, a lot of people will start these programs with a preconceived notion in their mind, maybe in their subconscious, that they're not going to complete it, that they're not going to be successful, and they're judging themselves before they even start. And so with pornography, a lot of us will be like, well, I'm going to quit pornography. We'll say that, but in the back of our minds is like, how long will it be before I go to Pornhub or whatever the websites are out there? And how long will it be before I do it again? I already in my mind acknowledge that I'm going to fail. And I think a lot of that can be halted or altered or tapered by noticing judgment in the small things, not just judgment of ourselves, but judgment of the emotions, the experiences that we have. And as you notice that you're judging them and work to stop that, then you can stop judging yourself about a lot of other things and setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate saboteur.
Judgment. Oh yeah,
it really is. I mean, it's like, and we have, I'm sure a lot of guys come to your program, and we see it with a lot of the men and people that we work with. They have the best intentions those first 1 or 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it just starts to slowly go down. Yeah. And it's like, and because the mind's like, oh, you're no good at this, I told you, and the mind is very strong, and it gets stronger if we begin to try to make changes at a later age. Because, our biology, we have this mylar sheaths, right? And they talk about this in through the meditation practice, they talk about sankara, right? And sankara is an agrarian term in Sanskrit, and it means rut. And we typically fall in the same ruts. And if we keep falling the same rut, we actually strengthen that rut, and it also becomes like calcified or cemented in some ways. So at a later age, when you really want to make some changes because you've been doing whatever, consuming porn, for example, for a very, very long time, it's like there's so many things in our environment that work against us, so many things on our internal environment that works against us, so many different triggers that we're constantly exacerbating because because the lives that we're living, we're just habitual, rutting. So when you really want to start to make change, you wake up this force, this judgmental force inside you, be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I just want to go back and like sit in my beach chair and drink my Mai Tai as you just do my bidding. Right. So it's just like when you begin to make those changes, like there's like our ego is a very, very, very powerful force. And I think like that's why accountability is so important. That's why having conversations with other men, having the same struggles, can be very inspiring and helps you to like just one more day without it, or one more moment without it, or one more decision that aligns with who you want to be and the values that you want to espouse. So it's like it takes time, but it is possible. But I think what's helpful about one way to eradicate judgment is celebrate your mini wins. The little wins that you have, it's just like celebrate it. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, I didn't use pornography today, or I didn't drink. I only drank one soda today instead of 5. Whatever it is, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like all this stuff. It's like, well, that's a victory. Yeah. And that's why it's nice to like when you're going, especially in the beginning parts of really trying to make change, is to have an accountability buddy that you can like kind of talk with, you can struggle with, you can also remind each other that it's just like, you know what, we're doing the work, man. And the work is everyone thinks that the work is just like a linear progression to more of what you aspire to be. It's a mess, man. Up and down, all around, and it's just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm accomplished nothing. But by you showing up, that's the accomplishment. Yeah. But and believing in yourself, those are the accomplishments right there. And just keep going. And it starts to, it takes, it's not even 3 weeks. It's not even a month. It's not even 2. It could be like 8, 9 months, a year. But I tell you what, you're worth it. You're effing worth it. And you're worth it, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. Like just even contemplating change if you haven't started to make those changes.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Just so much wisdom. Maybe we can kind of land this thing with some practical steps. We obviously you talked about starting the day with with box breathing, 5 minutes at the beginning. I love some of those little practical nuggets. Anything else you guys want to insert there? And then make sure you guys mention awareness to action, I believe is the name of your new launch as well.
That's it. Right
there it is.
Yeah. So just tie this all together. Give us some next steps here.
I'll just, so the book that Will just held up, the book that I'm holding up now. So this is the course workbook, and it's a workbook, but it's also a journal. And that's why I'm going to mention it here, is that journaling is another great practice that can help you to implement mindfulness in your life, right? Writing in the morning about what it is you're thankful for, write what it is you're experiencing, again, without the judgment. Just that is in and of itself a mindfulness practice. And that's what this accompanying book to the course has. It has prompts to ask you, okay, what are you feeling? What did you experience from this particular module? So the Awareness to Action course, A2A as we call it, just launched it yesterday, and 12-week module, or 12 modules. And that covers just about everything that we talked about today, what mindfulness is, what it isn't, what meditation is, what it isn't, what you're going to get out of it, how to start. You start small. Like, after that one counselor recommended mindfulness and meditation to me, I laughed in his face. And then the next day, after he sold it to me as performance enhancement, I sat down. I was like, I'm going to crush meditation, just like the guys who Will says, come in and crush yoga. And I sat down for an hour-long meditation day one. And Sathiya, I'm sure you can imagine how that went. It did not go well. And then I got up from that meditation. And I was like, okay, meditation isn't for me. Just like we started at the very beginning of the show. That's like going in the gym for 20 minutes day one and looking in the mirror and expecting to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or at least how he used to look. Anyway, the the practice is called a practice for a reason. Is it takes time, it takes effort, it takes consistency, and start small. Start small. I started with some breath work, very basic, just those 5 minutes of box breathing, and then started to do that more often throughout the day. And then I was able to sit down and meditate for 5 minutes. Not 10, not 15, not an hour, 5 minutes. And then I celebrated that victory. And then I was able to get into longer duration, more in-depth meditations. And it's been, as Will has heard me say this before, I attribute mindfulness meditation not only to changing my life for the better, but quite literally saving my life. And I know that it is out there changing and saving others' lives. So that's why it's a duty and an obligation to do what we do.
Yeah. I would just also say, get around other people that inspire you. Like it's really powerful to be in a community of people, of like-minded people, of people that are going after the same thing. It's so, we a lot of this work, we're kind of, I don't want you to think like, yes, your meditation practice, it might typically be done in isolation in some ways, but there's also, if you're in a city like I am, there's definitely, you can go out for probably a group sit every day of the week. Maybe that's what it takes to kind of like motivate you and continually inspire you to keep, on that path. So it's community is really important. Awareness to action. You can find it at mentalkingmindfulness.com. We have the community built in, and it's just like your program, Sathiya. It's a slow ramp up.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way things work. I mean, think about, how you learn the alphabet. It's the ABCs, and then it's like, then you're writing out the words, and then you're putting very simple, like, oh, the cat liked the hat, whatever, very simple sentences, and then you're writing more sentences and complex prose and poetry. And here we are having a podcast, it's like, but it starts small. It just starts small. Like, give yourself the patience to learn the ABCs of trying something new, right? Because it's like that's what it takes. We can't be good at anything if we've never looked at it or never tried it before. So give yourself that grace and give yourself that patience and put yourself around people that really inspire you. Now, maybe you have to eliminate some of the relationships that are destroying you.
True.
We're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and that's a fact.
Yeah, there you go. mentalkingmindfulness.com. Sounds like that's the hub to the podcast and everything else. We'll have all the links to everything in the show notes. But you guys, just amazing, incredible stuff. I love that you guys embody the message. Those are my favorite people to speak with, are people who don't just have good information, but they actually practice it. They're doing it. And you guys are clearly doing this stuff. So thank you for everything you're doing. And thanks for your time on the pod today.
Yeah. Thank you, Sathiya. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's been wonderful. Yes.
Awesome.